Again, extremely simple concept, extremely hard to execute on. But when I think about like the best teammates, the guys that everybody liked, the reason why they were the best teammates is because everybody just knew what they were going to get. They were just super consistent. It was like, this is who they are, and they're going to be like that no matter what happens. And you know what you're going to get from that guy. And I think there's just something really valuable about that in any team.
That's really powerful because especially when you're talking at the highest level, this is really at every level, right? Some stuff's going to go well, some stuff's not going to go well. It's how do I choose to react in this situation and show up no matter what the outcome is, really. Well, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Masters of the Game. And today I get to introduce you to Mr. Jacob Turner. Jacob, thanks for being here with me today.
Yeah, man, I'm excited for the conversation.
This is awesome. And we were bantering before, right? And I had to hit record. Otherwise, we would have done the whole podcast without hitting record, for goodness sake. We were starting to have some good conversations. But a little bit about your background, right? For those who aren't familiar, and go check out all the links in the show notes, of course. But grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, Town and Country.
Yes, sir.
Is that right? All right. So Town and Country, Missouri. Had the opportunity to go play collegiate baseball at University of North Carolina. And then you were the ninth overall pick in the first round of the 2009 Major League Baseball draft by the Detroit Tigers. And your career in the majors, Detroit, Miami Marlins, Chicago Cubs, Chicago White Sox, Washington Nationals. And then you even had an opportunity to go play in the Korean baseball organization with the Kia Tigers. I mean, just a really fascinating background and journey that you've been on. And now, let alone, we'll get into your wealth management practice that you've been running for the last, many years, of course, here in a little bit. But really, really fascinating as you get into it, right? And walk me through. Like, I always love asking this question, but what's one of the greatest memories you have from back at your playing days? And that's a big question. You could pick any kind of era, but what's one of your greatest memories you have?
I think it's actually a pretty easy answer for me, Matt. The greatest memory I have is when I got drafted. I can remember I was sitting in my parents' basement. They had a little theater room, and we're sitting there. We're watching the draft on TV, and I believe that was the first year. 2009 was the first year the draft was televised. So it wasn't quite as a spectacular event as what it was today, but it was televised, and Bud Selig was the commissioner. And I remember going into that, I was in a pretty bad mood because I didn't know if any team was going to pick me. And for context, for people listening that don't know much about Major League Baseball draft, even if you're the best player, the way it worked then was like, if the team wasn't willing to meet your demands, especially as a high school player, you're going to go to college. So I didn't really know what was going to happen. And I just remember feeling like the first 8 picks took forever. And I knew the Tigers were somewhat interested, but they had actually told me, I believe the day before the draft, they told my agency like, hey, we're not going to pick him based on XYZ number that he wants to be able to sign. So I'll never forget that when Bud Selig called my name, I just ran over and gave my dad a big hug and told him we did it. And I think that just speaks to the fact that like I did not do this journey of baseball or sports alone. And as a dad of 4 kids now, I certainly appreciate even more so what my parents did for me, what my brothers did for me to get me to that point.
That's amazing. And there's so much I want to unpack on this, right? And let's go back a little bit further, right? You're playing high school baseball in Missouri. How did North Carolina come to find out who Jacob Turner was? Like,
yeah.
What was that like?
How did Jacob Turner come to like North Carolina? Like every 17-year-old, my decision was based on like cool school colors, how much fun the recruiting visit was, what their new stadium looked like. They just built a new baseball stadium. So as a 17-year-old, like these are all the really important things that you're making decisions on, not the rest of your life or your career or where you're going to get a degree from, but like who has the coolest, newest baseball stadium. And how North Carolina actually got in touch with me was in baseball. There was a time when the coaches could talk to you. And I can remember we had nearly every college in the country called and they were interested. And I was super fortunate to have all these opportunities. And I was interested in North Carolina and they didn't call. And I remember going to my advisor at the time who became my agent in the future. And I said, hey, I'm kind of interested in North Carolina, but like I didn't hear anything from them. And sure enough, like the next day, the head coach called and he's like, if you're interested, we're interested. But, given that you're from St. Louis, I didn't know if you'd want to come to North Carolina. So the rest is kind of history. I didn't end up making it there, but I did do my summer orientation for a couple weeks there.
Did you? It's so wild because, I love the focus though, because again, they do have really cool colors.
They do. I mean, I got Jordans to this day that got those school colors on them. So
That's so amazing. That's worth the phone call in the first place, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Those orientation weeks. So you're kind of, what made you stand out? Like, because I always like to talk about, we have lots of kids that, want to go from whatever level, right? Maybe I'm playing freshman baseball, I want to make varsity, or I want to varsity, I want to go play in college, or, eventually we'll get to the pro stuff here in a minute. But what do you think separated you from like other individuals where you got, not just with North Carolina, but you got all these other opportunities, calls, and then ultimately drafted?
Yeah, I think the easy answer that everybody will tell you is a combination of talent and hard work. But the reality is, like, I had a lot of God-given ability, and I didn't work at all for that talent, right? Like, God blessed me with the ability to throw the baseball really hard. He blessed me with the ability that I'm 6'5". Those are things that, like, I did not choose, right? Those were given to me. Did I work hard? 100%. Like, was I doing things that other kids weren't doing? 100%. But if you're a coach out there, if you're a player out there and you're listening to this, you're saying, well, I'm working super hard, and maybe I don't have that level of talent, or it hasn't, shown itself in that way. I think the other thing, though, to me that really stood out as I look back on my career, and even my career in business, is an unwavering self-belief. And at the time, I didn't quite realize that in high school. I just thought, like, oh, this is how I think, so this is how everybody thinks. But having an unwavering self-belief in anything you're doing, and that's not to say like you're not going to have doubts, but just the reality and the belief that you can do it, to me, makes the biggest difference in the world.
How did that show up for you? Because I think oftentimes, honestly, it's easy to say, potentially harder to do, right? Especially when you experience that self-doubt or something goes wrong, right? The way you want it. I think through self-talk, what was that like, and what is it to this day?
So some of it's a little bit of a personality based, like just who I am as a person. I've just always had belief in myself. Some people may say like too much of a belief in myself at times, and I think that can be a detriment for me sometimes as well. But when it comes to how that actually manifested, I think one of the interesting points to note, and a story I'll share, is in high school I had that unwavering self-belief. I get drafted 9th overall. I think I'm going to be a 15-year big leaguer. I get to the big leagues at 20 years old. If you look at the names of the people that got to the big leagues at 20, you're like, these guys are mostly superstars.
Yes.
And unless you're a really big baseball fan, you probably don't know who Jacob Turner is. So by 25, I'm back in AAA, and that unwavering self-belief completely gone. I mean, like, go from 10 out of 10 confidence to like 1 out of 10 confidence. And I'll share kind of what my road back from that was. And one thing I just realized through that entire process was like, I will never go back to a point of not having confidence. Even when we talk about business, we were talking before the show about the business that we have, and I started it 4 years ago, and I didn't have all the answers. But I told myself, like, when I was in the depth of my self-belief in 2013, 2014, 2015, when I was really struggling, I'm like, I'm never going to go back to that. I'm never going to go back to that. And it took, honestly, years. But I think the first step is just admitting where you're at. Like, where baseline, where am I at? Like, am I at a 10 out of 10 self-belief? Am I at a 1 out of 10? And then what are things that I can do to start getting myself there? I think it's a multitude of different things. It's hard work. It's a process. It's understanding, okay, I'm not always going to get the results. And just because I worked hard doesn't mean it's a prerequisite for success. It's just going to give me a chance at success. All those sorts of things that I just had to somewhat learn the hard way, because I can be a little bit hard-headed at times. Got me back to where I'm at today. And I think that's what I would tell anybody that's listening to say, like, how do I enhance my self-belief? You need to just understand where you're starting at.
Admitting what's going on is the hardest part, oftentimes.
100%. Especially in the world of sports and athletics, where it's, there's probably some level of ego there, whether it's at the high school level or the college level, the pro level. You don't want to admit that. And you're afraid that if you do admit that, like, if I admit that to the wrong person and they tell somebody else, like, what does that mean? Does that mean I'm going to, like, not get the playing time that I want? But the reality is, it's just like anything else. If you're a basketball player and you're missing a bunch of 3-pointers, you can either bury your head in the sand, or you can figure out, like, okay, how am I going to work on this part of my game? And I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions out there with sports is everybody talks about the mental side, but nobody actually is working on the mental side. They're just working on the physical side. They're like, I need to throw more fastballs down and away. So what can I do in my bullpen to do that? I need to hit more home runs. So, like, how can I get my launch angle up? But nobody's sitting there saying, man, my mental game, I'm a 1 out of 10 right now. What do I need to do to try to get that mental game up?
Yes. That's such a key point, right? I mean, that's the basis of my entire business of, I look back and everybody said, oh, those mental side's always important, right? And I would have agreed with that in the past. I still agree with that to this day, but in the past, I didn't know what that meant. Like maybe I think I'm older than you. I know I am, but you look at some of that stuff and it's like, well, how am I supposed to work on the thing that I don't know what it is? I can't like grab it. I can grab a baseball bat. I can grab a glove. I can grab a basketball. I can physically grab something and work on that. But the mental side is kind of that a little bit unknown. And I think the unknown can become scary.
It can. And the other thing I would say too, and I'd be curious to hear your take on this, but this idea of like just letting go and getting back to competing when it comes to sports in general, but I think it's also true for business. So when I was in high school, I never once thought about the mental side because all I was really thinking about was competing, right? All we were doing was trying to win the game. Like I wasn't getting paid. I wasn't thinking about the MLB draft. I wasn't thinking about the scholarship at North Carolina. I was thinking about the fact that like, man, these are my best friends and we're playing baseball together. And I really want to beat the other team and get to the state tournament. And then you get to higher levels and you start understanding, well, like this scout told me that my stats seem to be XYZ and they're not XYZ, but we still won the game. So is that good? And then it starts snowballing into this fact of like, okay, well, they told me that as a pitcher, my arm action or as a hitter, like my stride's not right. So like, do I need to change that? We're still winning. And then slowly but surely you lose the idea of just competing. And the idea when you're competing, you just kind of let go of everything else. And I remember when in 2018, I got released from AAA, which for those listening is like the bottom of the barrel. You're like, this does not feel good. I'm not in the big leagues, I'm in the minor leagues, and I got released. So like you can go anywhere, but not here. And I remember driving home, I got one more opportunity to go back to the Tigers who I started with. And I was actually talking to a guy that I use for some mental skill stuff. And he's like, hey, like all the bad stuff's happened. So why don't you just go out there and try to have like as much fun as you can possibly have? And I'll tell you, Matt, like the next 3 to 4 months, not only did I pitch well, but I had a heck of a lot of fun. And I just went back to like competing because I was like, I have no expectation. I don't want to say I don't care because I'm competing and I really want to win, but I don't really care like what the end result of this is. I just want to try to win every night.
I absolutely love that point because I think one of the things missing from sports is you call it having fun, but I like your word better about it's that I'm here to compete. I'm here to enjoy myself. I'm here to help my team win. I'm here to see what happens. And that's why we played the game in the first place.
Yep.
And we lose that along the way of it becomes uber competitive and uber analyzed and everything's broke down. And then all of a sudden you forget why you started in the first place.
Yeah.
I remember, you don't know much about my journey, but I was a walk-on at Creighton in Omaha, and I was cut after 2 days. I'll give you the short story. Cut after 2 days, didn't touch a ball from a year on a dare from a friend, tried out my sophomore year, made the team, played for the next 3 years. Then I moved over to Europe to play for a little bit, right? And I still remember senior year taking ground balls at practice, and one of my teammates, one of the other third basemen, looks at me, and he made this comment, Jacob. He goes, Matt, you have the whitest teeth. Out of the blue, random. You're probably like, same thing as me. Like, what? Like, what are you talking about? And so I asked him, like, well, why do you say that? And why did you notice something? And he said, well, I just noticed you're smiling all the time. And here's the deal. I was so just, I don't know, overjoyed to have that opportunity to be out there competing, to your point, to have fun again, enjoy the game. And that's when you oftentimes play the best. Like in business, when you're enjoying it, it's not without challenges or ups and downs or anything like that, but you typically position your business to have a better chance of success when you're actually enjoying it and not it's this slog, overanalyzing everything, painful experience.
Oh, 100%. And I think it sounds so simple, like just go out there and compete. But oftentimes the longer that we play a sport, the longer we do anything in life, we start to build up these scars. Yeah. And then you're in this situation where you're like, not only have you had the good result, but now you've had the bad result. And like the reality is like that bad result doesn't leave your head. So don't try to ignore it. But how do you say, okay, I understand like what I can do good here and I understand what it could look like if I do bad, but how do I just get back to just competing? Because the reality is like the more I can compete, the better my outcome's going to be. And the example I always give is if you watch a pitcher pitch and you watch his 3-0 pitch after he's throwing 3 balls and you watch his 0-2 pitch, both fastballs, both down and away. which one of those looks like he's competing more and more aggressive? It's always the 0-2 pitch. It's never the 3-0 pitch. The 3-0 pitch is like, I just don't want to walk this guy. Yes. The 0-2 pitch is like, I'm going to throw by this guy. I'm going to look really great as I strut around the mound and I strike him out. And I think that conundrum shift, same person, throwing the same pitch on the same mound on the same day, is everything. And if you can get in a situation where you can stay aggressive and you can stay competing like you are on that 0-2 pitch all the time, your outcomes are going to be so much greater and you're going to have a heck of a lot more fun.
100% agree. It's that commitment to the pitch, to the hit, to the swing, to the shot, to the whatever. And I always tell baseball players, I love working with pitchers too, because I always tell them, like, when you release that ball, it's over. You don't know what's going to happen. It's off your hand. So you have no idea. So just enjoy the ride and see what happens. Hopefully it works out really well.
Yeah.
Sometimes it won't, but most of the time it will. And it's a fascinating. I love your perspective on you're out there to compete, right? It's not have fun and, run around and everything's hunky dory. It comes with challenges, but I can still enjoy it amidst the challenge.
Yeah. Amen to that.
You talked and you mentioned kind of sports psychologists that you reached out to. Give me some perspective on why you use someone. How did you use that person? Because you and I talked a little bit right before that sometimes it's a scary thing to ask for help. I think asking for help in general can be a scary thing. It doesn't have to be a scary thing, by the way, side note. But talk me through like that sports psychology side. Who'd you use? Why'd you use that person? And how'd you use them?
Yeah. So the main individual I used was a guy named Don Carmen, who worked for the agency that I was with. And when I first started out, I didn't know anything about sports psychiatrists. And I was like, I've never really failed. So I don't know what this like wacky thing that you want me to think about is. Like, I don't think about any of that stuff. I just compete like we talked about. And then I started playing longer and I started having scars. And I started being like, I think I'm going to call that guy. And for people listening, the easiest example that you can see in sports today is the PGA Tour. Because the PGA Tour is an incredibly mental game. And I think Jordan Spieth's probably a good example of this. You see Jordan Spieth back in, let's call it 2015. He's on top of the world. He's winning majors. And people say like, well, why is he not winning like he was then? And I don't know Jordan Spieth, and I don't want to speak for Jordan Spieth. But what I would say is like, the reality is he has a lot more scars than he had then. He was so young and so naive. And there's a huge benefit to that naive nature of like, I don't really understand how big the moment is. Yes. And I don't really understand what happens if this goes bad because I've never seen it go bad. You're just in the moment. And ultimately, that's what a sports psychiatrist helped me do. Like, how do I get back to being in the moment? Now, there's a lot more to that than just saying like, I just want to be in the moment and like putting my finger in the air and hoping the wind's going the right direction. But the one thing that they really helped me with was just understanding what is a process that I can do, that I can be consistent with, that can help to instill the confidence that I need to go out there to perform. So for me as a pitcher on a 5-day routine, if I'm doing roughly the same thing every single day, and I'm starting to have success with that, that process is starting to instill confidence in my mind of like, okay, if I do this thing, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to have a really good chance of succeeding. And that's not to say every single start I go out there and I have a ton of success, but it's to say I shouldn't change my process. Like, let's develop a process that's going to start to instill confidence in me. So then when I step on between the lines at 7:00 for the night game, I'm like, yeah, I'm ready to go. And to your point, Matt, like I've done everything I can do. And if the results don't equal what I want them to be, okay, great. Like maybe we should tweak something, but it doesn't mean I should just blow up my entire process.
That's such a key point of, we throw these words around like, have a great routine. Well, there's a reason you have a routine. You need to understand that and how to build it the right way. And it's not some perfect science where, do this, 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 and those three things equal, what's the phrase? 1 + 1 = 3 instead of 1 + 1 = 2. But it can have that effect, right? If you understand how to do it and how to leverage it. And again, all focused on confidence of, am I positioning myself to be successful? I love that focus. Let me ask you this, because in your career, when you talk about that process, that preparation, making the tweaks, things like that, were you more focused on like, what do I need to improve or what do I need to keep doing?
For the longest time, I was just focused on trying to make it seem like I didn't have anything wrong. If for anybody listening, like you can pull up my stats, like they're not great. And you'd be like, oh, like it's interesting. Like what was that like from an emotional and a mental standpoint? And like early in my career, super naive, on top of the world, lots of confidence. And then it was like the confidence started wavering. But I mean, it took literally years, even as I started to talk to Don, to like admit to like even a pitching coach of like, okay, I feel like even outside of the mental game, like my physical game's not where it used to be. But like nobody's really saying anything. So like, should I just not say anything either? But like, I feel like I'm kind of a shell of my former self. Like I feel like I'm a 5 out of 10 version of myself. So it's an interesting conundrum that athletes go through. And I think I'm super grateful for the experiences I've had with it because it's changed who I am as a person. And as somebody who, Lord willing, has decades more in front of them to do other great things in life and make an impact on people in a different way, I'm grateful for it. In the time, I remember sitting in my hotel room one time in Miami, looking at the ceiling and being like, God, I don't know why you're doing this to me. And I don't really appreciate it right now. And maybe at some point I will. But right now, I just want to throw 7 shutout innings.
I'm getting through 4. Let's hit 7. Yeah. Come on. I think it's so interesting because especially athletes, right? I don't know what your thought is on this, but when I watch a lot of coaches, when I work with a lot of athletes, it's all focused on like what's going wrong. And I always remember there's a story about Mike McCarthy, not Mike McCarthy. Who's the Miami Dolphins head coach?
Mike McDaniel.
Thank you. When Tua came to the team, he showed him 700 videos of him making amazing plays because he wanted him to understand, like, do that. Like, look at what you can do. Look at what's inside you, all these different things. And oftentimes it's like, even in business, but athletics, we focus on like, well, I got to fix that one little thing instead of focusing on like, 90% is really solid. Mm-hmm. So how do I repeat that behavior, whether it's a process preparing for a game or whatever it is? How do I repeat that behavior and not focus so much on like the 5% or 1% that's off? Yeah. What are your thoughts on like where to focus from that perspective?
I think it goes back to focusing on the process. And I'm going to give a specific example, but if you're a baseball player and you are a pitcher and you throw a bullpen, so you're practicing your pitching and you throw 25 pitches and 24 of them are just absolute nails. Like you did exactly what you wanted. And the 25th one, you throw it in the dirt. There's no batter in there. So like he could have even swung at it. In the game, it could have been a good pitch. But in the bullpen, you're like, not a good pitch. Didn't execute it. You can leave that mound and be like, man, what a great bullpen session. Or you can leave that bullpen session and say, cannot believe I did not make that last pitch. And the reality is most athletes will focus on that one pitch and not the 24 good ones. So what I tell everybody, instead of thinking about it like that, when you go into a practice session, have one goal in mind. One goal, like a goal that's like totally achievable. And one thing that I started doing when I was at my lowest point from a confidence standpoint was I said, I'm going to go into this bullpen. I'm going to throw 25 pitches. I don't care if they all go to the backstop, to be honest with you. But I want to feel like, and I know the feeling of like, I committed to 25 pitches. I was focused. I had the target picked out. I knew what I needed to do. I knew what the feel was on the pitch. And I like really ripped through that pitch. And I don't care what the results were. And if the results were bad, it's like, okay, like results were bad. Like I'm not even going to tune in. That was a win. I was committed to that pitch. And that's what really started to like get me back to starting to climb that proverbial mountain and start to build that confidence again. And I'm the ultimate perfectionist. So for me to do that, it was just like incredibly challenging to try to not focus on what the end result was.
I love asking pitchers what their job is on the mound. And most of the time, the response I get is throw strikes. And I kindly tell them that's not your job. And then they ask inevitably, what is your job? Or what is my job supposed to be? And I say, to get outs. However you need to. So sometimes, to your point, a strike might not be the best pitch to throw, or that one in the dirt might be the perfect one because you're changing the eye level, right? So for those baseball folks that you're not familiar with the game, I won't go too much into this, but right, if I can change the eye level of my batter and all that sort of stuff, right, I can produce more outs. I don't know if you agree or disagree on that, but that's what I tell a lot of pitchers, like it's get outs. Now, how do we commit to the pitches? Like make a decision, commit, And that's where that chance of success goes up.
Yeah. Well, and I think I would just say for like any sport, one of the biggest challenges for athletes is like when you don't have your A game, you're like, I'm a 6 out of 10 today. I'm just going to be okay with that. And I'm going to compete. You're a quarterback and you're like, man, I just can't make that throw on the 20-yard slant today. You're a batter and you're like, I'm 0 for my last 30, but I'm starting today. So I'm either going to think about how I'm 0 for my last 30. I'm going to figure out like, how can I help my team win? And how can I compete? You're a pitcher and you're like, my arm's sore today, but like coach called on me and like I'm pitching, or I don't have the breaking ball today, or I'm a golfer and like my driver is, I should just keep it in the bag today, but I still got to play 18 holes. And it's so much of that is like the mindset shift, because let's say you're a pitcher and you have 30 starts in the year. I mean, realistically, you're going to feel like 10 out of 10, I don't know, 5 times, 5 out of 30. And then like another 20, you're going to be like, I'm somewhere in the middle, somewhere between like a 6 and a 9. And there's going to be 5 where you're like, I feel absolutely terrible, but like I'm about to pitch in 30 minutes. So I better like put it in gear and get going.
Yep. It's all we choose to focus on, isn't it?
It is. It is.
Again, it's relatively simple, not easy necessarily, but if you leverage the resources and ask for help and do these sorts of things, like that's the differentiator, I think, if that willingness to ask for help. And you don't have to ask someone, close to your team or something like that. It can be someone external. That's fine, but it's still working through and getting focused on the right thing.
Yeah. Simple to do, hard to execute, much like a lot of things in life.
Yes. Well, let me ask you this. You're playing professional. Like, what's your definition of like someone who's a true professional at the major league level? Like, is there someone that comes to mind? I mean, you lived it, you did it, but what does that mean to you? Like, what do you do? How do you show up? Like, what makes a professional in your mind?
I think the best professionals in any profession, sports, business, etc., they show up the same way every day. So they show up from a physical standpoint the same way. And what I mean by that is they're going to show up and do the work, whether they feel like doing the work that day or not. I also think from a mental and emotional standpoint, they show up consistently. Now, this isn't to say like, you got to be like, I got to be the high energy guy. If you're not the high energy guy, like I'm not the high energy guy. So, but that doesn't mean I need to show up and be the high energy guy. It means I need to show up and be the guy that my teammates expect me to be. And that means I should be that same guy, whether I threw 7 shutout the night before or I gave up 7 runs in the first inning. Again, extremely simple concept, extremely hard to execute on. But when I think about like the best teammates, the guys that everybody liked, the reason why they were the best teammates is because everybody just knew what they were going to get. They were just super consistent. It was like, this is who they are, and they're going to be like that no matter what happens. And you know what you're going to get from that guy. And I think there's just something really valuable about that in any team.
That's really powerful, because especially when you're talking at the highest level, this is really at every level, right? Some stuff's going to go well, some stuff's not going to go well. It's how do I choose to react in this situation and show up no matter what the outcome is, really.
Mm-hmm.
And again,
well, I think it's that way. It's that way for most things in life. Think about for any athlete. If you're a high school athlete and you want to get to the next level, you're going to have to show up consistently for an extended period in time and realistically see like no progress. Like you're making progress, but it's not going to be enough. It's not like you're going to show up as a hitter and you're like, I've gone to the weight room for the last 3 months and now I'm hitting 400-foot homers. It's just, it doesn't work like that. It's like all of a sudden it's like, oh wow, like I think I might be making some progress. And then you have a little breakthrough. And then you give up 7 runs in a start. You're like, am I making progress? And there's this little graph that I have that I put on my phone from time to time that essentially says it's a little J curve. And way out in the J curve, there's this line that says, this is pointless. And then there's another line right after it says, this is when people stop. And I think that's like true for everything in life, because like we do something and we want to be consistent with it and we get all excited and we have all this quote unquote motivation. And then it doesn't work right away. And then it doesn't work again. And then we're like, I got to change my process. I got to do something totally different. And the reality is like, it's like an ice cube melting, right? An ice cube melts at 32 degrees, 33 degrees. But at 32 degrees, the thing's still frozen. You don't know that it's getting close to melting. And all of a sudden it starts melting and it's undeniable. And I think that's like that is like the ethos of what I live my life by. Somebody asked me recently though, Jacob, what are you good at? And I said, I'm not really good at like a lot of things. I'm just good at showing up. That's it.
The line goes to "this is pointless," and then passes that and goes to
the J curve straight up.
Straight up like, the J curve.
Interesting. Like this thing was working. I just stopped too soon.
It's so true. I mean, I found that in countless examples in my life. I mean, countless. The game of baseball, other sports I've played, things I've done and I haven't done, right? Again, as I tell people all the time, no perfection on this side of the mic. That's for sure.
Yeah.
We all make mistakes and learn from it, but it's just that consistent. That's why I have this behind me. It's like, just keep going.
I like that.
Right. Sometimes we feel it's working. It's not. All of a sudden, it's a magical moment of like, I hit the 400-foot home run. You're like, or 450. You're like, whoa.
Yeah.
What'd I eat today? It's like, no, it's the work you've been doing. It just finally caught up. But
one thing I would add too is so many people are so focused on the best days. They're like, man, I had a great day. And then when they don't have a day that's a 10 out of 10, they're like, oh, like it was terrible. And this is literally what I tell myself on the days where I'm like, I had a day recently. It was like last Tuesday. I just had no motivation. I was like, I don't want to do the stuff that's on my whiteboard over there that says that like I need to do this today. And there was 3 things I was supposed to do. And I said, like, I can just tell this is like a 6 out of 10 day. But you know what? I'm going to do one of those things. I'm going to do one of those things. I'm going to do it really well. And I'm going to plan for the next day. I'm going to keep my momentum going. And I'm not just going to sit here and throw a pity party because I'm like, I just didn't show up and like I just didn't feel great today. And the reality is like my whiteboard and the list of tasks I have does not care how Jacob feels. And our business and the goals and the results and the outcomes that I want do not care what my emotions are that day. And if you're listening out there, one, understand that it's normal that you're going to have days where you're just like, man, I just don't have it today. And that's okay. And you just need to keep showing up and do a little bit. It doesn't have to be a 10 out of 10 day. If you're going to the gym, you don't have to do 5 sets of bench press that day, but do 2. Just keep the momentum going.
So good. So good. Should end there, but I don't know, so many questions. I want to switch to coaching for a minute. Who's one of the most influential coaches you've had, and how did he help you?
I would say my dad. Kind of a cliche answer, but my dad, and I'll share why. I think to be a good coach, you have to understand who you're coaching. I had a lot of coaches in pro ball that were outstanding coaches, but they didn't understand me. And I say that in the nicest way, but they didn't understand like what I needed to succeed. I wasn't the kind of player that like, I need like a pat on the butt. I need like a bunch of words of affirmation to like feel good and be like, oh yeah, like, all right, coach, he sees me. I need somebody who's going to be like, hey, like you just need to kick it into gear and just be like, shoot me straight and be honest with me. And the reason why my dad was so good was he's my dad. Like he knows me better than everybody. And the second thing was he never let my mini ego as a kid get in the way of my future success. I see a lot of coaches out there. I see a lot of parents out there that toe this line of building up their kids' confidence by telling them how great they're doing at everything they do. And then the kid has this belief that like, they're just like the best player since sliced bread. And it's a fine line. It's a fine line. Like I want my kids to have confidence, no doubt about it. But like one thing I tell my son who plays ice hockey and baseball, and he knows I'm going to say it. So every time we're at practice, he's like about to say it to me. I'm like, hey bud, what are we going to work on today? Just one thing. Like what's one thing that you want to work on today? And then when we get done with practice, I just ask him like, hey, do you feel like you gave like all the effort you could? And like, how'd you feel about that thing you worked on? And then I tell him like one thing that I was like, hey, I thought you did this. You were really good doing this today. But it provides the mindset for him that like, hey, there's always things that I need to be working on.
Mm. I like that because you look at Wayne Gretzky, right? To use hockey. I mean, he had a personal skating coach. Most people don't know this, but he had a personal skating coach for literally his entire career. And the day he retired, he went and skated with that person and practiced the day he retired. And so if you have the greats doing it, if we can just replicate that and know that, one of the greatest players of all time worked on his skating every single day, when you'd look at him and be like, well, hey, he's got it down. He's got it figured out. But he chose to work on it because there's always that one little thing to work on, to improve, to get a little bit better at.
Yeah,
it's a
so
huge
true.
thing. I really like that. The two last questions going to be wherever your time. I'll have to get to St. Louis. So I'll have to do a sit down and extended session.
I do walk and talk, so we can walk around the local park. That's what I tell everybody. So I'll bring the coffee. We'll do a walk and talk. So if anybody out there is listening, they're in St. Louis, they want to get together, walk and talks. I'll do
perfect. I love those. Who's one of the best teammates you've had, and why were they such a good teammate?
Two guys come to mind: Jeff Mathis and Brian Holiday, both catchers. So as a pitcher, you appreciate your catchers. And two reasons why they were both good teammates. One, they both showed up consistently, like we talked about, and you just felt like they were both in the battle with you. And that means like, yeah, they want you to have a good result as a pitcher, but like, you just felt like they were in the fight with you. And I think that's a good lesson for anybody out there in life. Like, if you're somebody that you're in somebody else's corner, or as the term that I use, like you're on somebody else's bus, like let them know. Be like, hey man, I just want you to know, like, I know you're struggling right now, but like I'm in your corner, and like I'm here with you. And there might not be anything else you really need to say, but that just goes a long way, knowing that like, hey man, somebody else is in the fight with me.
A lot more people need to hear that than we think.
Oh, 100%. Especially guys. I'll single us out. Like, we want to be macho and have egos and say that we don't, but like, man, it goes a long way knowing that somebody else is there for you.
Yes. And they don't have to do a thing necessarily, but just say the words.
Yeah.
You don't know the impact that it has on others around you. And I think athletes will find out that whatever you do past your sport, right? Because it will end at some point, as it does for everyone, that like everything we're talking about today continues in working on the confidence, the knowing, letting people know that you're in their corner. Like that's such a critical skill to learn now and be a good teammate, if you will, for the rest of your life, right? Marriage, kids, if you get into business, teaching, like whatever you happen to do, like learning these skills and taking them forward are massive. So learn now and leverage them now, and then repeat, as they say.
100%.
I want you to give the listeners and people watching a little flavor for kind of what you're up to now. You mind sharing a little bit more about your business? And
yeah, so I stopped playing in 2019. I've always loved personal finance. I was really fortunate to sign for a lot of money as an 18-year-old and thought like, I just don't want to be on ESPN 30 for 30 broke. So our business helps athletes and entrepreneurs not be on ESPN 30 for 30 broke. We help athletes and entrepreneurs build and protect wealth, and we've been building it for the last 4 years, and it's incredibly enjoyable. And Matt, we were talking about this a little bit pre-show, but the line I always use is like, we work with people that bet on themselves, and it's incredibly rewarding to be able to help people that took that leap, that bet on themselves. That's the athletes like, hey, I think I can do the thing that nobody else is telling me I can do. The guy that started the business that everybody was like, you see that guy over there? He's like, are you sure he should do that? Because I know I've been in those shoes. I remember when we started this business, somebody came up to me and they said, are you sure you want to do that? And I said, yeah, I'm sure. And I'll never forget who told me that. So 4 years later, here we are.
Yes, absolutely. It's funny too. I don't know if this has been your experience, but I mean, you have to have a little bit of, I don't know, you have to be a little naive when you
100%
play sports.
If I knew everything I knew now, would I do it the same way? Nope.
Yes. But that's sports too. I think you have to be naive.
Oh,
like, it's going to work out. I'm going to be successful.
There's a lot of value. There's a lot of value to being naive, like we talked about multiple times here.
Oh, it's huge. But it's one of the most fun things, right? To figure it out and compete. And again, you can have a corporate job or teaching, whatever that career takes you or whatever you do. But it's that attitude of how do I compete and continue that and figure it out and have the confidence to like step out and do the things that not a lot of people are willing to do. And you can do that day to day and in literally every area of life, working out, relationships, again, every area. It's so impactful.
So true.
That's so good. Okay. I know we're right at time. So I'll wrap us up here, but first and foremost, let me ask, where can people connect with you before I wrap us up?
Yeah, the best place is anywhere on social media, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. My handle on most of those accounts is the Jacob Turner.
Perfect. And we'll put links in the show notes, everything there, so you can connect with Jacob, learn more about his story. Also understand the importance of like money and finance and what it can do for you. I think too often we learn too late in life of just little small tweaks you can make that make a massive difference. I say that as a business owner right now, and the conversations I've had with our advisor of like the possibilities and creating wealth and all these different fun discussions, which I know you guys do. So if nothing else, like go start learning about some of that stuff. Huge principles. Jacob, thank you. I just truly appreciate your time and you like pouring into the listeners here and me too. I always joke sometimes I do this selfishly for me so I can learn and grow. And there's some truth in that. So, but thank you I just can't thank you enough.
Appreciate you, Matt. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So for everyone else watching, thank you as well. Always so fun to have you part of the show. And as I say every single time, and I said this when Jake and I were talking, take one thing, please just take one thing that he talked about and put it to action. Take one step forward. It may be something around your confidence. It may be a process that you need to put in place. Maybe you need to, think about that point where you're at, where maybe it feels a little bit pointless. But if you just keep going, that's when you're going to hit that curve and rocket your way up. But take one thing, implement it, and please share this with your family, friends, coworkers, teammates. You know the spiel. And we'll see you on the next Masters of the Game interview. Thanks, everybody.